The space station Halo 7 floated in the darkness between stars. It was a small place, far from the busy trade routes and shining cities of the galaxy. Most beings came here only when they had nowhere else to go. Yuna liked it that way. She sat alone in her repair shop, surrounded by broken machines and scattered tools. The light above her head flickered as she worked on an old navigation unit. Her hands moved with care, connecting wires and replacing burned circuits. She had done this work for 15 years. Machines made sense to her. They had problems, and problems had solutions. Life was not always so simple, but machines were honest. Her assistant Taiho had gone to sleep hours ago. The young man worked hard, but he still needed rest. Yuna rarely slept. There was always something to fix, something to improve, something to understand. She was just finishing the navigation unit when the warning sirens began to scream. Red lights flashed across her workshop. Yuna dropped her tools and ran to the observation window. Outside, she saw something impossible. A ship was coming toward the station at dangerous speed. It was not slowing down. The ship was large and shaped like nothing she had ever seen before. Its surface looked like black glass, and strange symbols glowed along its sides. The ship hit the docking bay with a terrible crash. The whole station shook. Yuna grabbed the wall to keep herself standing. Alarms continued to ring. Emergency lights painted everything in angry red. She grabbed her repair kit and ran toward the docking bay. Whatever had arrived, someone might need help. When Yuna reached the bay, she stopped and stared. The crashed ship had torn through the metal floor. Smoke rose from its broken hull. But that was not what made her freeze. Standing in the middle of the destruction was a creature from old stories and distant legends. It was a dragon. The being stood taller than 3 grown men. Its body was covered in scales that looked like black crystal, catching the emergency lights and throwing back tiny rainbows. Great wings folded against its back. Its eyes burned like dying stars, ancient and full of pain. In its arms, the dragon held another of its kind. This second dragon was smaller, with scales that should have been silver but now looked gray and dull. She was not moving. Yuna had heard of the Korath. Everyone in the galaxy had. They were one of the oldest species in existence. They lived for thousands of years. They had technology that other races could not understand. They were proud and powerful, and they never asked anyone for help, but the dragon before her was asking. He took a step forward, and his voice came out broken and desperate. "Human," he said. The word was rough, like he was not used to speaking the common language. "They say humans fix anything? My Rena, she dies. Her core fails. No Korath healer can save her, please." Yuna looked at the dying dragon in his arms. She could see the problem now. In the center of Rena's chest, there was a glow that should have been bright. Instead, it flickered weakly like a candle in the wind. Cracks spread across her scales around that glow. Dark fluid leaked from the wounds. Teho arrived behind Yuna, breathing hard from running. His eyes went wide when he saw the dragons. What is... "Get the medical scanner," Yuna said quietly. "Now." The young man ran to obey. The great black dragon moved closer. Yuna could feel the heat coming from his body. She could see the fear in his ancient eyes. This being had probably lived for thousands of years. He had seen stars born and die. But right now, he was just someone watching the one he loved slip away. "What is your name?" Yuna asked. "Vale," the dragon answered. "And she's Rena, my bonded mate." "My other half." Taiho returned with the scanner. Yuna took it and approached the dying dragon carefully. She ran the device over Rena's body. The readings that came back made her heart sink. "Her core," Yuna said slowly. "It is like a heart and a power source combined, yes?" "It is failing." Vale nodded. "The core is everything. It powers her body, her fire, her thoughts, her soul. Without it, she cannot live. Our healers say the damage cannot be fixed. They say the core is sacred and cannot be touched. They told me to say goodbye." His voice cracked on the last word. Yuna studied the readings again. The core was unlike anything in her experience. It was part crystal, part living tissue, part pure energy. Human science had never studied anything like this. The Galactic Medical Database had no solutions. Every species that had tried to repair a core had failed. Some had made things worse. She was just a mechanic. She fixed engines and computers and life support systems. She was not a doctor. She was not a miracle worker, but when she looked at Vale's eyes, she saw something that she understood. She saw love. She saw the kind of desperation that comes when you are about to lose everything that matters. Una had felt that once. Long ago, when she could not save someone important to her. She had promised herself that she would never feel that helpless again. She had dedicated her life to fixing things so that others would not feel that pain. "Bring her inside," Una said. "Put her on my work table." Vale's whole body shook with relief and hope. "You will try? You will help her?" Una looked at the dying dragon, at the flickering light in her chest, at the impossible task before her. "I will try," she said. "I cannot promise anything, but I will try." It was all she could offer, and somehow it was enough. Una had never worked on anything like this before. She had fixed ship engines that could destroy cities. She had repaired life support systems that kept thousands of beings alive. But she had never held a life so directly in her hands. Rena lay on the large work table in the center of the shop. Vale had placed her there with such gentleness, such care, that Una had felt her heart ache watching them. Now the great black dragon sat in the corner, too big for the space, his wings pressed tight against his body. He watched everything with eyes that held hope and terror in equal parts. Una began her work with scanning and studying. For hours, she and Taiho mapped every part of Rena's core. They took thousands of images. They measured energy flows. They recorded every crack and every failing connection. The core was beautiful. Even dying, it was the most amazing thing Una had ever seen. It sat in the center of Rena's chest like a second heart. The outer shell was crystalline, but not like any crystal found in nature. It had grown there, part of her body from birth. Inside, layers of living tissue wrapped around threads of pure energy. Light flowed through it like blood through veins, but the beauty was broken. Deep cracks ran through the crystal surface. Energy leaked from these wounds constantly. The core was losing power faster than it could make more. At this rate, Rena had perhaps 2 days left. What happened to her? Una asked Vale during a short break. The dragon's eyes darkened with pain and guilt. "Raiders," he said. "They came for our ship? For our treasures? I fought them, but there were too many." Rena placed herself between me and their weapons. She took the blast that was meant for me. His great claws scratched against the metal floor. It should have been me. I am older, stronger. I should have protected her. Instead, she saved me, and now she dies for it. Una understood guilt. She knew how it felt to wish you could trade places with someone. But she had no time for feelings right now. She needed solutions. She returned to her studies. Taiho brought her data from every source he could find. They read about Korath biology. They studied old reports from species that had tried to help injured Korath in the past. Every report ended the same way. Failure, death, the cores were too complex. Too perfect. Any attempt to repair them only caused more damage. The Korath themselves considered the core sacred. Their religion taught that the core was a gift from the universe itself. To cut it open, to try to fix it with tools and technology, was considered a terrible sin. Korath healers used only meditation and energy transfer to help damaged cores. When these methods failed, they accepted death as the natural end. Vale had rejected that acceptance. He had flown across the galaxy to find another way. "Your healers," Una said to him. "They could do nothing?" "They tried," Vale answered. "For weeks they tried. They transferred their own energy to her. They performed every ritual. Nothing worked. The damage is too deep. They told me to prepare for her death. But you did not accept that." Vale lifted his head high. "I cannot. We are bonded, Rena and I. When Korath mate, we share a part of our core with each other. If she dies, half of me dies with her. I would follow her into darkness within days. His voice dropped to a whisper. And even if I could survive, I would not want to. 1,000 years we have been together. I cannot exist in a universe without her. Yuna felt the weight of those words. 2 lives depended on what she did next. 2 ancient, beautiful beings who had loved each other for longer than human civilization had existed. She went back to work. She looked at the problem from every angle. She thought about everything she knew about crystals and energy and living tissue. And slowly, an idea began to form. She remembered something from her childhood. Her grandmother had owned a beautiful bowl, very old and very precious. One day, young Yuna had broken it. She had cried for hours, thinking she had destroyed something that could never be replaced. But her grandmother had shown her something wonderful. She had taken the broken pieces and put them back together using a special mixture that contained gold. When she finished, the cracks were still visible, but they had become beautiful. Golden rivers ran through the bowl, making it more precious than before. Her grandmother had called it kintsugi, the art of golden repair. The idea that broken things could become stronger and more beautiful. When you fix them the right way, Yuna looked at Rina's cracked core. What if she did not try to hide the damage? What if she filled those cracks with something that could bond with the crystal and the living tissue both? Something that could carry energy and grow with the core? She began to design. She worked through the night, creating plans for a special compound. It would be part metal, part organic material, part something new that she invented on the spot. It would fill the cracks like gold filling broken pottery. It would seal the wounds and restore the energy flow. It was completely untested. It went against everything the Karth believed. It might kill Rina faster, but it was a chance. The only chance. Yuna showed her plan to Vale. The dragon stared at the diagrams for a long time. His expression shifted between hope and horror. You want to put foreign material inside her core, he said slowly. This is forbidden. The core must remain pure. The pure core is killing her, Yuna replied. Your way says she dies. My way gives her a chance. I know it goes against your beliefs. I know it seems wrong. But I have looked at this problem from every direction, and this is the only solution I can find. Vale closed his eyes. His whole body trembled. She would want to live, he finally said. She would want to stay with me. She would choose the chance. He opened his eyes and looked at Yuna with complete trust. Do it, save her, please. Yuna nodded once. Then she began to prepare for the most important repair of her life. The preparation took 12 hours. Yuna did not sleep. She could not afford to rest when every minute brought Rina closer to death. She built the golden compound herself, mixing metals and organic materials in exact amounts. The mixture had to be perfect. Too much metal and it would not bond with the living tissue. Too much organic material and it would not hold the crystal together. She tested batch after batch until she found the right balance. Teho helped her prepare the tools. Human nano-welding. Equipment, usually used for the most delicate ship repairs, would guide the compound into cracks thinner than human hair. Medical scanners would monitor Rina's vital signs throughout the procedure. Emergency power cells stood ready in case the station's systems could not provide enough energy. Word had spread across the small station. Other beings gathered outside the workshop, watching through the observation window. There were traders and travelers, mechanics and wanderers. All of them had heard the impossible story. A human was going to fix a Korath dragon's core. Most of them came to watch the failure. A few came hoping for a miracle. Vale stayed inside, pressed into his corner. He had not moved in hours. He had not eaten or slept. His eyes never left Rina's still form. When everything was ready, Yuna stood beside the work table and took a deep breath. She looked at her hands. They were steady. They always were, no matter how scared she felt inside. I am going to begin now, she told Vale. I need you to understand something. I might fail. She might die. But I will give this everything I have, I promise you that. Vale dipped his great head in acknowledgement. I trust you, human. Whatever happens, I will not blame you. You are giving us hope when no one else would? Yuna nodded and turned to her work. She started with the smallest cracks, the ones farthest from the center of the core. Her hands guided the nano-welding tool with absolute precision. Tiny amounts of golden compound flowed into each crack, filling the space completely. The compound bonded immediately with both crystal and tissue, sealing the wound and creating something new. The work was slow. Each crack took minutes to fill properly. There were hundreds of cracks. After 3 hours, Rena's vital signs began to drop. Her body was reacting to the foreign material. It was fighting the repair. Give her system time to adjust, Yuna murmured to herself. She paused her work and watched the scanners. Slowly, too slowly, Rena's body calmed. Her vital signs stabilized at a lower level than before. Yuna continued. After 6 hours, she reached the deeper cracks. These were the dangerous ones. They ran directly through the energy pathways that powered Rena's heart and mind. One mistake here would kill her instantly. Taiho wiped sweat from Yuna's forehead. Her arms ached from holding the tools so carefully. Her eyes burned from staring at the micro-dash displays. She pushed forward, a crack along the main energy channel. Compound flowing in, bonding, sealing, another crack. Another repair. The monitors screamed. Rena's heart stopped. Yuna did not panic. She could not allow herself to panic. She grabbed the emergency stimulator and pressed it to Rena's chest. Once, twice, 3 times. Nothing. VL made a sound that broke Yuna's heart. It was not a roar or a scream. It was a whimper, small and lost, the sound of someone watching their world end. Yuna tried again. She poured more energy into the stimulator. She pushed harder than the machines were. Designed to handle, Rena's heart beat once, twice, then it found its rhythm and continued. Yuna let out a breath she had not known she was holding. Behind her, she heard Vale weeping with relief, but she was not finished. She could not stop now. She worked for 4 more hours. The deepest cracks required the most care. Some were so small that only a single stream of nanoparticles could fit inside them. Yuna guided each particle individually, placing them exactly where they needed to be. The golden compound spread through Rena's core like veins of sunlight. What had been broken was becoming connected. What had been weak was becoming strong. Near the end, Yuna reached the final crack. It ran directly through the heart of the core, the place where all energy began. This was the wound that had started everything. The blast from the raiders had struck here first, and the damage had spread outward like a disease. Yuna's hands trembled for the first time. She steadied them with pure will. The compound flowed in. It filled the crack completely. It bonded with the crystal, with the tissue, with the energy itself. Yuna stepped back. She was covered in crystalline dust. Her clothes were soaked with sweat and coolant. Every muscle in her body screamed with exhaustion, but she had done it. The repair was complete. Rena's core glowed softly. The golden veins ran through it like rivers of fire. The light was weak, but it was there. It was stable. Now they could only wait. Vale moved from his corner for the first time in hours. He approached the table slowly, carefully, as if afraid that any sudden movement might break the spell. "Is it done?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Yuna nodded. The repair is complete. But her body must accept it. She must heal. She must wake up on her own. How long? Yuna looked at the scanners. She looked at the faint glow of the repaired core. She looked at the still form of the silver dragon. "I do not know," she admitted. "Hours, days, maybe longer. We have done everything we can. The rest is up to her." Vale curled his body around the table, wrapping his mate in the protection of his wings. He pressed his forehead against hers and closed his eyes. "Come back to me," he whispered. "Please, my love. Come back to me." Outside the observation window, the gathered beings began to leave. They had seen something impossible. Whether it would end in triumph or tragedy, only time would tell. Yuna sat down heavily in her chair and allowed her exhausted body to rest. But she kept her eyes on the scanners. She would not sleep until Rena woke up. 3 days passed. 3 long days of waiting and hoping and fearing. Yuna barely left the workshop. She slept in short periods on a small cot Taiho had brought in. Every few hours, she woke to check the scanners, to monitor the energy flow in Rena's core, to make small adjustments to the healing compounds. Vale never left at all. The great dragon remained curled around his mate, keeping her warm with his body, speaking to her in a language Yuna did not understand. Sometimes he sang to her low and soft songs that were older than human history. Sometimes he simply breathed with her, matching his rhythm to hers, sharing his life force through their bond. The golden veins in Rena's core grew brighter each day. The compound was working. It was bonding fully with her body, becoming part of her. But she did not wake. Teho brought food that Yuna forgot to eat. He brought news from the station. Word of what had happened was spreading beyond Hello 7 now. Ships were arriving with beings who wanted to see the human who had dared to repair a dragon's core. Most of them expected to find failure. Some of them came hoping to witness history. On the second day, Yuna received a message from a Korath ship. The dragon elders were coming. They had learned what she had done. The message did not say whether they were coming to thank her or to punish her. Yuna deleted the message and returned to her monitoring. On the night of the third day, something changed. Yuna was half asleep in her chair when the scanners began to beep differently. She jumped awake and stared at the readings. The energy flow in Rena's core was increasing. Not slowly and steadily like before, but quickly like a fire catching fuel. Vale lifted his head. His eyes were wide with hope and fear. The golden veins in Rena's core began to pulse. Slowly at first, then faster. Light spread through her body, running along paths that had not existed before. The cracks that had nearly killed her were now channels for something new. Rena opened her eyes. They glowed with silver light. But now there was gold in them too, traces of fire that had not been there before. She blinked slowly, looking around the workshop with confusion. Then she saw Vale. "My love," she whispered. Her voice was rough from disuse, but it was the most beautiful sound Yuna had ever heard. Vale pressed his forehead to hers. Tears streamed down his crystalline scales. He could not speak. He could only hold her, could only feel her warmth, could only thank every star in the universe that she was alive. Yuna stepped back to give them space. Taiho stood beside her, wiping his own eyes. After a long moment, Rena lifted her head and looked at her own body. She saw the golden veins running through her scales. She felt the changes in her core. "What happened to me?" she asked. Vale told her everything. He told her about the journey across the galaxy, about finding the human mechanic, about the impossible repair. He told her how close she had come to death. Rena listened in silence. When he finished, she turned to look at Yuna. "You did this?" she asked. "You fixed me?" Yuna nodded. "I tried something new. I did not know if it would work. I'm glad it did." Rena rose slowly from the table. She tested her legs first, then her wings. She stretched carefully, feeling each muscle, each bone, each connection in her body. Her wings spread wide, filling the workshop with silver and gold. Then she did something unexpected. She laughed. The sound was like crystal chimes in a warm wind. It filled the space with joy and wonder and relief. "I feel different," Rena said. "Not broken. Not just repaired. I feel more than I was before." She breathed deeply and released a stream of fire. But it was not the pale silver flame she had always produced. This fire burned white and gold, brighter and hotter than anything she had ever created. Vale stared in amazement. "That is not possible," he breathed. "Your fire, it is stronger than mine." Rena looked at her own flame with wonder. "The golden repairs," she said slowly, "they are not just filling the cracks. They are creating new pathways, new connections. They are making me stronger." She turned to Yuna with eyes full of gratitude and amazement. "What you did was not just repair. It was transformation. You have given me something new." Yuna did not know what to say. She had hoped to save Rena's life. She had not expected to improve it. "The technique I used," Yuna explained, "it comes from an old human tradition. We believe that broken things can become more beautiful when they are repaired with care. The cracks become part of the story. The wounds become strength." Rena moved toward her. Despite her size, her steps were gentle and graceful. She lowered her great head until she was eye level with the small human. "You have done something no one in the history of my species has ever done," Rena said softly. "You have proven that our cores are not just sacred objects to be protected. They can grow. They can change. They can become more than what they were." She pressed her forehead gently against Yuna's. It was a gesture of deep respect among the Korath. "Thank you," Rena whispered. "Thank you for not accepting the impossible." Yuna felt tears running down her own face now. All the exhaustion and fear and hope of the past days released in that moment. She had done it. Against all odds, against all expectations. She had fixed the unfixable, but as she looked at the two dragons holding each other, at the golden light flowing through Rena's transformed core, she knew that something bigger had happened here. Something that would change more than just two lives. Something that would ripple across the stars. The Korath elders arrived 1 week after Rena woke. Their ship was enormous, a living vessel made of the same crystalline material as their bodies. It docked at Hello 7 with the kind of authority that made everyone on the station nervous. The Korath did not often visit small places like this. When they did, it usually meant something important. 5 elders walked through the corridors of the station. Each of them was ancient beyond human understanding. Their scales had darkened with age to deep purples and blues. Their eyes held the weight of millennia. They moved slowly but with purpose, and every being they passed stepped aside in respect and fear. Yuna waited in her workshop. She had cleaned the space as best she could, but it still looked cluttered and humble compared to the magnificence of the Korath. Beside her stood Vale and Rena, the dragons who had started everything. The elders entered the workshop and stopped. For a long moment they simply stared at Rena. The eldest among them stepped forward. She was larger than the others, her scales so dark they seemed to absorb light. Her name, Yuna had learned, was Vena. She had lived for nearly 10,000 years and was considered the wisest of her kind. "Show me," Vena commanded. Rena stepped forward and opened the scales on her chest, revealing her core. Golden veins ran through the crystal like rivers of fire. The light pulsed with health and power. There was no sign of the damage that had nearly killed her. Vena studied the core in silence. The other elders gathered around, their expressions unreadable. "For a material," one of them said. His voice was hard with disapproval. "She has been corrupted. The core is no longer pure." Vena raised a claw for silence. She continued to study the golden repairs, her ancient eyes missing nothing. "Breathe fire," she commanded Rena. Rena obeyed. A stream of white gold flame erupted from her mouth, brighter and hotter than any fire Yuna had ever seen. The elders stepped back in surprise. "Again," Vena said. Rena breathed a second stream. Then a third. Each time the fire burned just as bright. There was no weakening, no fading. The power seemed endless. Vena turned to face Yuna. The human suddenly felt very small under that ancient gaze. "You are the one who did this," Vena said. It was not a question. Yuna nodded. "Yes, I am. You cut open a Korath core. You introduced foreign compounds. You broke every law and tradition of our people." Yuna lifted her chin. She would not apologize for saving a life. "I did what I had to do. Your healers said there was no hope. I found another way." The elders murmured among themselves. Some looked angry. Some looked thoughtful. Vena remained still. "Our laws exist for a reason," Vena said slowly. "For 10,000 years we have protected our cores from corruption. We believe that purity was strength. We believe that any change was decay." She paused and looked back at Rena's glowing core. "But this is not decay. This is not corruption. This is something new." Vena's voice softened with wonder. "The golden repairs have not weakened the core. They have strengthened it. They have created new pathways for energy. They have made this young dragon more powerful than she was before her injury." She turned to face the other elders. "We have been wrong. For millennia, we have let our children die rather than try new solutions. We have called it wisdom. We have called it faith. But it was only fear. The disapproving elder spoke again. You cannot mean to accept this. Our traditions have killed countless Korath who might have been saved, Vena interrupted. Her voice was firm. This human has shown us another way. A way that does not reject change but embraces it. A way that finds strength in healing. She turned back to Yuna. The ancient dragon lowered her great head in a gesture of respect. You have given my people a great gift, human. You have shown us that we can grow, that we can evolve, that even the most sacred things can become more than they were. She reached up and removed something from around her neck. It was a pendant made of pure crystalline material, glowing with inner light. I offer you the title of Coremender, Vena said. It is the highest honor we can give to a healer. No non-Korath has ever held it before. Yuna looked at the pendant. She thought about what it meant. She thought about leaving her workshop, her station, her quiet life. I am grateful, she said carefully, but I cannot accept. My place is here. There are others who need my help. I cannot leave them. Vena smiled. It was a strange expression on a dragon's face, but it was warm. We expected you might say that. The offer remains open forever. But perhaps there is something else we can do? Over the following weeks, the Korath spread the story across the galaxy. They told everyone about the human mechanic who had saved one of their own. They sent their healers to learn from Yuna, to study her techniques, to carry her knowledge back to their homeworld. And word spread further. Other species began to seek out human mechanics and engineers. Not because humans were the strongest or the smartest, but because they saw problems differently. They improvised. They adapted. They refused to accept the impossible. On the day Vale and Rena prepared to leave, the station was crowded with beings who had come to see the dragons depart. Yuna stood at the docking bay, watching them prepare their repaired ship. Rena approached her one last time. The silver dragon, now threaded with gold, was radiant with health and power. I want to give you something, Rena said. She reached up and pulled a single scale from her chest. It was silver and gold, beautiful beyond words. It caught the light and threw back 1,000 colors. This is the highest honor a Korath can give, Rena explained. This scale is part of me, part of my core. It will never fade. It will never dim. And it will always remind you of what you have done. Yuna took the scale carefully. It was warm in her hands, pulsing with gentle energy. Thank you, she whispered. Rena pressed her forehead against Yuna's one last time. You gave me back my life. But more than that, you taught my people that we can grow. That wounds can become wings. Vale joined his mate. Together, the two dragons walked to their ship. At the entrance, they turned back one last time. The galaxy is changing because of you, Vale called. Wherever you are, whatever you do, know that you will always have friends among the Korath. They entered their ship. The engines came alive, and slowly, gracefully, the crystalline vessel rose and departed through the airlock. Ascending toward the stars, Yuna watched them go until the ship was nothing but a point of light. Among millions. Then she turned and walked back to her workshop. Her tools were waiting. Her machines needed fixing. Somewhere out there, someone else needed help. She was just a mechanic. She fixed things, but sometimes fixing things could change the universe. She smiled and got back to work.